I haven't listened to this, so I reserve the right to not respond to it if I don't want to. Okay. This is a post from Fran Mirabella on X. Somebody sent it to me. They said, you should check this out. And so I literally don't know what I'm getting myself into. But content creator XIGN of 18 years. Ooh, baby, 18 years at IGN. An OG. VP of video, reviewer, reporter, fitness fanatic, Twitch partner, email, DMs open. Golly, lots going on. Let's see what it is. It says unscripted vent, exhausted by ... predictable drama gamer reactions overplay Highguard. Highguard, in case you somehow don't know, was the thing revealed at the Game Awards. It was the final One More Thing announcement. When we saw it, we were immediately bedeviled by how it was framed by Jeff. Not just that it was the last thing announced, but also just that it was framed and being pitched as a new breed. I think that's the text they used. They said a new breed of shooter. And he described it as like they wanted to elevate the shooter genre and move it forward, push the shooter genre forward or something like that. And everything we saw looked either generic or like literally Fantasy Concord. And I'm sorry that that immediately has negative connotations. But if it's a connection people make in their heads, it just is a connection they make in their heads. You know, I'm not going to like lie and pretend like it doesn't give me Fantasy Concord vibes just because that hurts your feelings. Like, I'm not the one that spent millions of dollars on it, okay? Like, so I don't feel an obligation to reframe it. If it looks like X, Y, or Z, I'm going to say it. Like, it could still be fun. I do think, like, Concord, there was fun to be found in it. It just was not more fun than you could get for free across the street with one of those plethora other games that were available. And it was just somewhat unremarkable. Like, yeah, it was well put together. Clearly, the people that made this knew what they were doing. It's just the idea and the concept wasn't that compelling. And with this, it's a similar thing. Maybe there's a piece of it we just don't see. I think probably what they thought of as like the new breed of shooter was the horses and mounts. It seems to take some like MOBA inspirations. I think the destructible environments was also something that they were pointing at, but it looks like it's basically walls within rigid structures. So it's not like Red Faction. Like you can destroy these walls. The framing still stays up. You can't destroy the whole building. That would be interesting if like the entire building could collapse, but that's not what this appears to be. So people saw the announcement and the reveal. They found it underwhelming. They found it kind of lackluster. And I think the key for me, at least, was that I think people were pissed specifically because it was the One More Thing announcement. It was the final announcement. And last year, it was like Naughty Dog's new game, okay? So people were expecting a Naughty Dog level announcement, and then instead it's a new studio making another hero shooter. And people were just like, really? Really? And I think that that's why people got pissed. I really, honestly, truly believe if Highguard had been announced earlier in the show, no problem. I think nobody would be talking about it right now, which is why it was not revealed earlier in the show. But I don't think any of this discourse would have kicked off. And now certainly it's shifted. As you can see, Paul Tassi posted this. Highguard currently sits at the golden 1-to-10 Concord dislike ratio on YouTube. Hard to understate how tired people are of new live hero shooters. The craziest thing was to think you should close the show with this, however, which I think is true. There was no thinking. There was probably a checkbook involved and it was all systems go. Probably. Otherwise, it just doesn't make sense because the option is either Jeff got a fat stack to put it at the end of the show and they paid the most for that slot, and so they got to be put at the end of the show, or Jeff honestly thought that that was the best game to finish the show. I cannot fathom him thinking that it was the best game to end the show. I don't think Jeff is that out of touch with the industry and the community. I think they just paid a fat stack. The problem is we don't know where they would be getting the money because it's a small studio.
Donated
but
10
who
euros
knows?
through Super Chat. Doesn't Battlefield do a similar thing that Highguard is promoting minus the heroes? Heck, even COD has done it several times before.
Yeah, well, that's why like everybody's trying to figure out what's the hook, what's the unique thing here. And the whole trailer, we watched a 2.5-minute trailer. I still don't really know what the unique thing is. It looks like a hero shooter with like magic and guns, and then like you can break walls and there's horses you ride on. Like, I just don't understand what the unique thing is. And that's not what you want. At the end of an announcement trailer, you want people to be like, I'm intrigued. You don't want them being, what? That's the opposite. But let's see what he says. So predictable drama reactions overplay Highguard. Quote, you got to be pretty dumb to compare this to Concord and think the gameplay is anything like it. Can we please go back to playing games before placing 50-50 bets on their doom and trashing artist's vision. Let's see what he has to say. Let's hear it out.
My favorite part about this Highguard stuff is that everybody talking about this nonsense with Concord has like clearly never played Concord and does.
I did. We played it on stream for hours and hours. And then I even got it working with a cracked version, allegedly, just a matter of like a month ago, because you can still technically play it if you know what you're doing. So I've probably played a good bit more Concord than he has. And more recently. So boom, roasted.
Doesn't even understand the gameplay that they're seeing.
Okay. It's not a great start when you immediately dismiss the opinions of the people you're talking to based on things you can't confirm. It's not the best tactic, but okay, continuing.
There's a bit of hyperbole there.
Oh, right. You're right. Sorry. I have played Concord myself. I did.
Boom!
There you go. Continuing.
People are just overreacting, but like nobody
People may be overacting. Okay, I could see that.
played Concord, right? I did, by the way.
I did.
But now they just want to listen to their favorite streamers and want.
Shout out all you guys out there. Shout out if I'm your favorite. Much love. Concord was the #1 Concord streamer. I think I unironically made probably the most on Concord of anybody in gaming because they refunded everybody. So technically, if you made even a cent, you made more than Concord did. Just kind of funny. Shout out money. Exactly. I was the biggest Concord streamer, dude. You have no idea. Biggest. Wasn't for good reasons, but I was.
About, oh man,
Hold on,
this
hold
looks
on.
like now they just want to listen to their favorite streamers and whine about, oh man, this looks like trash, bro. It looks so like unoriginal. What are you talking about?
It does look pretty unoriginal. I mean, are you gonna say that this is like a novel concept? It's guns, but like he can do like crystal magic. There are horses.
Yes, I definitely think you can see a lot of these Apex inspirations and
So you agree?
unoriginal. What are you talking about? Yes, I definitely
What do you mean? What are you talking about? I mean, you're right, but like, what do you mean? You just said, what are you talking about? Then you agree? What are we doing?
think you can see a lot of these Apex inspirations and all that stuff, but like this is clearly, you know, a PvP game with these PvE elements, right? You got all of these PvE elements going on, and it looks like what it's going to be, right? You can have these PvP clash points. You're trying to make it to the end, but you're doing stuff like, you know, blowing up buildings, setting off like reactors. You have powers where you're like smashing through stuff. You've got to get keys maybe to get through next sections. Like, it's not a bad idea.
So you started by saying, what are you talking about when you say that it's unoriginal? And then you agree that there's clear inspirations from other games, meaning it's not original, it's derivative. And to be clear, derivative games can be great. There's plenty of games that like take the initial inspiration and refine it into something that's commercially successful or culturally successful, or both. You know, the biggest battle royale games were not the first. You know, whether you look at something like Fortnite or Warzone, there were plenty of other games that came before that technically experimented with the formula and laid the groundwork that was then refined. So being derivative is not like a death knell. It's not an inherent problem, you know, but I think it's fair to bring up, especially in the context of hero shooters, when it's hyper competitive and people are looking for a reason to be interested in this and they just don't see anything. And when you ask them, why are you not interested? Because it's derivative. It's too similar. Like, I don't know. I like, what's the unique hook? As we have said many times with Highguard when we've talked about it on stream, I'm just trying to find what the unique hook is. And it does just seem to be like, again, fantasy Concord. That's just kind of how it plays off. And I understand Concord brings with it negative connotations, but people have also said fantasy Overwatch or like fantasy Overwatch with horses. And people get upset about that too, because it's like it is derivative. Could still be successful, but I don't think you can dismiss all of the critiques of people who recognize the similarities because it's frustrating. Like, come on.
I don't know what everybody's whining about without playing it, but I'm just so exhausted with, you know, that part of the gaming discussion at this point. It's just, it's ridiculous, man. Like, you can get into the details about oh, this, shouldn't have ended the Game Awards as the final thing. Sure, we all want Bloodborne 2 or like something like absolutely massive that, we already know what it is. But, this is an inspired team. They wanted to break off and do something original. It looks like that's what they're doing.
Original. It's a new IP, sure. But like, I will say there's sort of a pragmatism that I feel like sometimes is missing. Practicality, maybe. Whatever you want to term you want to use. If the gaming audience reacts in X way, that's what you got to deal with. You can be frustrated by it. You can be like, I disagree. That's fine. But if that's how the audience reacts, that's what you have to deal with. It just is. You can be like Diablo Immortal. Why did all of those Blizzard fans lose their minds? Because they did have cell phones. Everybody has phones. It's like, okay, you can disagree with them being upset, but they're upset. And you got to deal with that however you want to deal with it. But like, you have to deal with that situation, with the reality that's presented itself. In the context of this, like, the audience found the game's presentation to be very disappointing, partially because they just thought it was uninspired and kind of unremarkable, but also because it was the final piece of the show. And I think the thing that's important to remember, like, they're not disconnected, okay? They're not disconnected. Putting any game at the end of the Game Awards, viewed by 150 million people around the world, putting this as the capstone announcement brings with it certain expectations. It just does. You don't have to like it, but it just does. And so if this is how you're finishing the show that's being viewed by 150 million people, that's like the biggest event in all of gaming in terms of raw viewership, people are going to raise their expectation, raise the bar. It's why I think if they had shown this off earlier in this show, none of this would be happening. The trailer probably would have been seen by a fraction of a percentage of the total people who have seen it. And the discourse would be largely non-existent. I know I wouldn't be talking about this, but people wanted to talk about it because there is this, like, I think it's also part of the reason why Concord became a symbol within the industry that people wanted to rally against, was not just based on what the game was, but based on what it represented. It represented this like corporate takeover of the gaming industry, this soulless corporate takeover where they were sacrificing at the altar of live service and potential monetary gain everything that makes gaming truly unique as an art form. And this game being the final announcement brings with it that stink of, like, the paycheck is what ultimately is dictating, or the rather checkbook is what's ultimately dictating how all of these things go. And it's the same thing where it's like, how on earth is it that this finished the show? It's either that Jeff thought it was honestly the best show or best game to finish the show with, which I think is patently insane, because I don't think Jeff's that out of touch. And or the other option is that Jeff just got the fattest stack for doing this. And so, like, this game offered the most money, and so they put it at the end of the show. What's interesting is that Jor was telling us he spoke to some of the developers from S Game who make Phantom Blade Zero. And he was telling us, because he met them at the after party after the Game Awards, and he told us on stream that the S Game guys gave Jeff the trailer for Phantom Blade Zero. They paid him a discounted rate, apparently. So it was not the full regular amount, but they did pay. And Jeff decided where it went in the show. They did not agree. They did not pay based on a certain level. They just gave him the trailer, paid an amount, and then Jeff chose where it went. That could mean that Highguard also just gave them a paid amount and then got the last slot. I personally don't believe that, because that last slot is way more valuable. I think everybody's watching the stream at that moment to see who wins Game of the Year. It has the most eyeballs at any point in the show. So I think they probably paid a premium to get it, but I did think that was interesting. But all of this to say, I think that the being at the end of the show raised expectations, it raised the bar, and then people watched the trailer and found it wanting. You can be upset about that, but I don't think gamers are like, I don't think they're unreasonable for doing that. I think that's a fair reaction to framing this in the same way that like this was announced at the same space and in the same spot that like the biggest studios in the world announced stuff, like Naughty Dog. Like, you know, From Software, if they have a big game, they'll reveal it right before the Game of the Year award, because they're the biggest studio in the world, or one of the biggest studios in the world. So putting this at the end raises the bar. and they didn't meet it. And then, you know, they suffer the consequences as a result.
I know that there's fears around free to play and, you know, the model that Apex created almost of the.
I don't think it's a fear. I think it's more just an exhaustion. It's just, really, guys? Because the one thing gamers love more than a really good game that they can sink their teeth into, they love seeing a corporate money cash grab fail. They love that, you know? Because they don't want that to become the industry. We've seen for the last 5 years, Sony completely shift off of the tracks that they were on through the PS4 era and divert billions of dollars into live service ambitions, which almost across the board have been failures. Concord, of course, being the biggest one, but they've spent billions on Bungie and so far have seen basically no benefit from it. We'll see if Marathon turns a profit or can be successful, but that's been a big blunder on their end. All of the countless canceled games, The Last of Us Online, which was in development for years and was canceled, all the stuff from Sony Bend that was canceled, like all of these different studios. Blue Point was working on a God of War live service game that disappeared and was canceled. And that was all at the altar of live service. And it's gone basically nowhere. And they've wasted so many billions of dollars and years and years and years of development time and resources on it. And they've hired people and then fired those people, destroyed some people's careers and livelihoods, all in the attempt of making Overwatch with horses, you know? And so that's part of the reason people are rooting for it to fail, because they just don't want to see that work, you know? So sometimes it's not purely just about the game, but also about what the game represents. And I think that's why Concord became the whipping boy of the gaming industry, certainly. It wasn't just because of what Concord was mechanically as a video game, because I agree, it was somewhat competently put together. It was clear those guys had experience, but it's what it represented that gamers decided deserved to be punished. And that's why they celebrated its death, and they still talk about it regularly to this day. Concord deserved its failure. Well, I would agree. It was like a fine game in an age where you need to be exceptional to even show up on people's radars. And that's the problem, is fine or even okay is not enough in the hero shooter genre. It's just not. Like, you're competing against everything from Overwatch to Marvel Rivals to games, maybe less so Valorant or games like that, but you're competing against all of those behemoths. And so being just okay is nowhere near good enough. And this game, I think, presents itself at least as like, okay. And that's not enough.
This like quick launch, you know, coming out of nowhere, and that is all pretty old at this point. So, you know, yeah, if this was a Titanfall trailer.
Sorry, I gotta hear that back, because what?
You know, the model that Apex created almost of this like quick launch, you know, coming out of nowhere, and that is all pretty old at this point. So
I will say the Apex shadow drop that happened, which people forget, but it shadow dropped out of nowhere, which is insane to think that you would shadow drop a live service game like that. But it worked, clearly. Apex is still, you know, chugging along. And they're not quite shadow dropping this, you know, it's coming in January. But yeah, maybe there's similar inspirations there because it's coming from some of the same devs. I don't know.
You know, yeah, if this was a Titanfall trailer, you know, everybody would have been like so excited. But, you know, it's from a lot of these people who get really good games. They get really good shooters. So I don't know if it's going to be any good, but, you know, maybe we should play it and hear about people playing it first before we start calling it Concord. And again,
so let me just say that I can understand what Fran is saying. I get it. Play it before you critique it. But I think there's two things with that. For one, people's time is valuable, and they can judge things based on looking at it, at least, you know, giving it the sniff test. And I think that this is also like my frustration, at least with this clip that we've seen. We'll finish it out in a second. But my frustration with it is that it's framed as though just broadly dismissing the feelings and impressions of the gamers that have seen it, which is not a good tactic. It represents this contemptuous vibe that tends to make things worse for you if you're a game developer. If you have like contempt for your audience, you will not find success. You will not find success. Instead, you should try to understand why people feel that way and are reacting that way. What is it about this trailer that elicited that response? Was it just its placement in the Game Awards? Is it also part of how it's been framed? Is it the trailer isn't very good? Is it the art direction? Is it some of the mechanics? Like, what is it? Try to understand what is actually going on instead of just being like, they're just being brats and like play it and they're just being outrageous. There's probably a legitimate reason they're feeling the way that they are. And, at least, he's not doing the thing that some people did with Concord last year, where people, if you remember, said, all these people saying Concord is like boring and lame. They've never made a video game before. And it's like, it's not a great tactic either. Like, I don't have to be a chef to know that my steak is overcooked. I don't need to be a mechanic to know that my car's tire is flat. I don't have to be an expert in the field in order to understand something about the field or to get something about something within the field. And in this case, if people are looking at it and finding it uninteresting and uninspired, and they say, it reminds me of Concord, you should pause and figure out why it's reminding people of Concord. Is it because it's a hero shooter that nobody really asked for or wanted and it's being framed as the next big thing? That might be part of the reason. So maybe you shouldn't frame it as the next big thing. Maybe you shouldn't try to act like it's the second coming of Hideo Kojima. And instead, you should just approach it purely from the game's perspective. One thing somebody said, forgive me, I don't remember who said it. I think it was on Twitter. But somebody was mentioning how the biggest live service games that end up blowing up into the biggest ones, they don't frame themselves as the next evolution of live service gaming, the next evolution of storytelling or whatever. Arc Raiders just comes along and is like, hey, yeah, we're a solid game and we're listening to the community feedback and this is what we're doing. And then it blows up and it explodes. Same with Helldivers. Like, they didn't expect the massive success, and that, I think, kind of helped it because people were not going in with crazy high expectations. They went in with lower expectations. But if you frame this as Jeff did, and as the studio has, as a new breed of shooters that are pushing the genre forward, there's going to be shifted expectations and demands that are going to be much harder to meet. And anyway, continuing, we'll let him finish up.
Like, you gotta be pretty dumb if you think that this game is anything like the gameplay in Concord.
Calling people dumb is not a great thing if you want those people to support your thing. I understand he's not working at the studio, so it would be way worse. Like, if this was coming from like the game director at the studio, then this would be like, okay, the game's actually dead now. This is coming from a guy on Twitter. But talking down to people and calling them dumb is not a great way to convince them that you're right. Okay? It's just not. Understand them. Understand why they're calling it Concord. Because guess what? It passes that initial gut check of like, okay, hero-based shooter, it appears. It's a game nobody really wanted. It's being framed as like the next big thing, even though nothing about it seems particularly remarkable. And I saw somebody in chat said they have Concord haircuts, which is funny because all these live service games, they all share similar haircuts. I don't know what that is. I need somebody to like write an academic paper on live service haircuts because they all start to share the same presentation and vibe. It's very, very weird. Like the hair or like the dreads that are up and braided off to the side, but then the side of the other side is shaved. And, they all have very particular vibes and hairstyles. It's very interesting to me. There's got to be a reason for it, but it's funny. It's like so trendy, Luke. Oh, really? I didn't know. I guess now I know. Thank you. It's just, and magenta or purple crystals, just like purple crystals in general. They love those. But you should understand why people are saying that and try to like humbly understand why they're saying it instead of calling those people dumb. That's my advice.
Like, anyone can see that if you just take a moment to look.
You're saying anybody can see that if they just take a minute to look. Bro, this trailer was seen by millions. The Game Awards is viewed by 150 million people. And the trailer is already, getting mass downvoted because people are watching the trailer and finding it wanting, to say the very least. Not even wanting even, maybe beyond that. They're starting to shift and root for its failure, in part because those who defend live service corporate kind of slop and presentations, they defend it in this pedantic, contemptuous way where they're calling the people dumb that disagree with them. suggesting that they didn't even look at the trailer. And that's no way to convince anybody you're right. It is a fantastic way to build up a militant base of people who want your game to fail and will work to make it so.
And what's in front of you. So, yeah, I mean, I'm looking to see what happens with it. I want to see more. I think they could have done a better job or really just made a better decision in like how they reveal it. But I'm looking forward to seeing it. So, you know, I guess we'll see what's up in the future, or if it's just going to, drop on January 26th and it's like, well, I guess we all play it together.
I'm gonna be real. Like, okay, he did have an update. So let's see what else he added. Let's see. Let me add more. You are free to dunk on a game's visuals or genre. I'm not saying there's a wrong. I'm exhausted. It's the majority of the conversation. I mean, you called people dumb and suggested that they hadn't looked at it for, what was the exact phrasing?
Good games, they get really good. This game is anything like the gameplay in Concord. Like, anyone can see that if you just take a moment to look at what's in front of you.
Take a moment to look at what's in front of you, suggesting that if you think that it looks like Concord, you didn't do that, which seems kind of dismissive, but okay. I don't like free-to-play games. Okay. Cool. I generally dislike grindy service games. Cool. I don't care how much it sells at this stage. Not sure what you mean at this stage, but okay. I like gaming discourse based on gameplay and substance. Mass gaming discussions love to focus on market success. You didn't play Prince of Persia Lost Crown because platformers are uninteresting and you hate cartoony animated looks. Your loss. I did play Prince of Persia Lost Crown. It's fantastic, and it does deserve a lot more attention because it's very, very good. As I've said for like a year and a half, whenever that came out. I think it was January of last year, I want to say. So yeah, Lost Crown is great. And you hate cartoony animated looks. No, I think it's a very particular subset of it. It's like how animation fans don't like the like bean mouth thing that they're doing in like all Pixar and Illumination movies nowadays. They're just kind of sick of it because everybody's doing it. And in this case, like, you know, the McCree reload and like revolver animations being really samey. And then like, you just know the dialogue that plays out in these games where it's like, time to fly as they jump off a rock. You know, like it's samey, you know, it's all of these games are kind of cut from the same cloth. Let's see. One Eye Jack Gaming says, I'm tired of the you can't criticize a game unless you play it argument. Yes, you can. You literally can. It's just like watching a movie trailer and deciding that looks lame. I'm not watching it. Well, it's the difference between the belief that you're entitled to somebody's attention or money or what would be the way of saying this? You know how like some studios make it out like they are entitled to you trying the game, where it's like you can't critique Concord or Highguard unless you've played it. But then it's like, okay, like but you're not entitled to my time and my effort. If I look at the trailer and I find it uninteresting, that's it. Like if I see the trailer for the new FNAF movie, which apparently sucks ass, and I decide I don't want to watch the movie, and I say, yeah, because it looks uninteresting, and my friend said it sucked ass. Like, that's a fair reason for me to not see it. That doesn't mean that I'm dumb. It doesn't mean that I was trying to twist something in this negative way. I just like, I didn't see it for those reasons. Maybe I'm pleasantly mistaken, and I could be convinced otherwise. But you know how you don't convince me that you're right? By saying I'm dumb. You know, like saying I'm dumb that I didn't look at the trailer. You must have watched a different trailer. Like that is this dismissive, cocky prick attitude that people hate about like gaming journalists. It's that snooty, hoity-toity, holier than thou attitude that people cannot stand. They hate being talked down to in that way, you know? They hate it. Never said you couldn't. Let's see. Oh, hold on. I got to finish it. It's just like watching a movie trailer and deciding that looks lame, not watching it. Gamers owe studios nothing. If your game looks good, people will try it. If it doesn't pique their interest, it won't, or they won't. I never said you couldn't. The irony. I said I was tired of it essentially being dramatic and the majority of the conversation. I don't care if you play the game. I literally don't. But I don't even know what to make of Highguard itself. But I can tell you I'm not painfully triggered by its looks. I generally don't like free-to-play and grindy service games as well. It's not drama. A game looks like shit. Nobody will play. $20 to $30 horse skins, $20 weapon skins, 20 to 30 pound hero skins, obligatory battle pass incoming. Hate that stuff too. The general point is I'm curious to see the actual gameplay and details of it. Would make for a great review or hands-on even. Just saying what God forbid we play a game and talk about it reasonably. I can understand this sentiment. Again, I get it. I get what he's saying. I think, Fran, I understand, and I even agree with what you're saying. I'd like more gaming discourse to be purely substantive. I would say, though, initial impressions and trailers are substantive. If somebody sees a trailer and finds it to be soulless, corporate, whatever, uninspired, whatever, adjectives you want to put on it, that is a substantive statement and discussion to be had. If I look at this and I say, yeah, nothing about this seems remarkable, that is a substantive thing. What you should not do is then dismiss the people that come to those conclusions faster, perhaps, than you do, as being dumb or not giving the game a fair shot and therefore acting in bad faith. That's not going to help Highguard do better. It's not going to help anybody do better. It's just going to make a lot of people pissed at you because you dismissed them. Yeah. And if you don't agree with me, you're stupid. Exactly. Like, I'm trying to see what Fran's saying, and like I can understand the sentiment, because I've heard people say it before. They said it about Concord, they said it about Suicide Squad, and it was like, you can't critique Suicide Squad until you've played it. Like, okay, I played it, still think it sucks. Like, so now that's kind of dismissed. And but again, maybe it's just a simple bare bones disagreement that I think looking at a trailer and preview events and gameplay impressions or whatever else it may be, looking at that early stuff and not necessarily putting your hands on it yourself, that can still be a substantive disagreement or discussion. And I think that's okay. You don't have to spend money on the game or spend time on the game in order to come to a conclusion about it. It's the game developer's job and the marketing team's job to intrigue you and get you excited. And if they fail at that and the game ends up being great, that sucks, sure. But again, they're not obliged to your money. They're not entitled to it. So if they fail to convince you to buy it, that's on them. And that's part of the magic of gaming, right? Is that it's this mixing of art, tech stuff, and then also marketing and putting it in a package and selling it to people. And the unfortunate reality is that if one of those pillars crumbles and is weak, the whole thing crumbles. Like, if you have one component of that trio, if the tech isn't up to par, the game will probably fail. If the game design sucks, the game's probably going to fail, no matter how hyped it is. If the marketing fails, no matter how good the game is, it still probably fails. It's all part of the same thing. And I think that in the context of the games industry, you can't just talk about one pillar and have a comprehensive discussion. And I think what he wants to do is talk about the one pillar of game design and ignore the other stuff. And you just can't do that. That's just not how the industry works. It just doesn't work that way. But interesting clip. Thank you to who I don't think I saved of whoever sent it to me, but I'm sorry. If you send it to me, say in the comments of this clip and I'll pin it. But interesting little take. Again, main takeaway, don't call people stupid and dismiss them for disagreeing with you. It's not a great way to convince people that you're right. It's a great way to rally them against you. There you go. You know what I'm going to say.
Boom!